Hello and welcome back to the channel. I can't remember what episode this is of our nutrient deep dive, but it'll be in the title so you'll know. But as you know, this is a series that I've been doing where we take a deep dive into all the individual nutrients that we are putting into our planted aquarium so you can kind of get a better understanding of them. And today we are going to be talking about micronutrients. So we're going to bundle these in as one. You might know them as trace elements, and we're going to talk about why, even though these are only needed in tiny amounts, they are still absolutely essential to the health of your plants in your aquarium. You'll have to excuse me, I'm not very well, and I have a very croaky voice today. So micronutrients are the small group of nutrients needed by plants in very tiny amounts, but are still absolutely vital for plant health. So if you've ever wondered why your plants might look pale or weak, even though you've got good CO₂, good lighting, you've got your macros dialed in, maybe the micronutrients are the missing link, and maybe you've not got them quite in balance yet. So we're going to cover what micronutrients actually are, why plants need them, how they interact with GH, pH and CO₂ and macronutrients, how to dose them safely, and how to spot deficiencies and the symptoms of those deficiencies. So micronutrients, much like macronutrients, are absolutely vital for plant health, only these are needed in much smaller amounts. We generally group these together when you buy a fertiliser, which is just trace elements or micro elements. They will all just be together in this one bottle. And they generally consist of iron, and there is a video on iron already, which I will leave a link for you to check that out. There is then manganese, zinc, boron, copper, and one that I can never pronounce, molybdenum. We'll go with that. I'll put it on the screen and you can tell me what it is. And all of these elements all still play a key role, even if it's tiny, in the health of your plant. So micronutrients essentially act as sort of like co-helpers, cofactors for the enzyme and metabolic processes that a plant undertakes to grow, essentially helping the plant use its energy and build tissues efficiently in order to grow strong. So whereas macros give sort of bulk and structure, and CO₂ provides the carbon for the plant, the GH, so the calcium and the magnesium, provides support and nutrient transport. Micronutrients basically allow the plant to actually use all of that effectively. So they're sort of like the backbone behind the macros. And without micronutrients, growth will completely slow down. New leaves will become like deformed and just look unhealthy. And plants will just show a really weak and pale coloration. And they might look a little bit translucent. So if you've watched the iron video, this part might make a little bit more sense. So micronutrients don't work in isolation, and their availability and uptake are affected by things like your pH, GH, your CO₂ and your macronutrients. So there's kind of a lot to this. So we'll try and break it down, and I am going to have to look at notes here because there's quite a lot to go through. So most micronutrients at a higher pH, so anything sort of like 7.5 and above, a lot of metals precipitate and they basically form insoluble compounds and they drop out of the water column. So they become a solid and they're not dissolved anymore. And that means that even if you've dosed enough, your plants can't absorb them properly. So a low pH, which is kind of what we keep most of our planted tanks at, they probably dip to about 5.8 if you've got CO₂ injection. And they probably don't rise anything higher than sort of neutral. And that sort of keeps them soluble, dissolved in the water column and just available. But obviously too low of a pH can stress fish. But for the most part, I don't think we sort of go into those areas unless we're looking at black water, in which case we don't really grow a lot of plants in black water tanks anyway. So pH basically controls the form and the solubility of micronutrients. So there is going to be a video on GH, which is your calcium and magnesium, but it is important in this video, so we are just going to touch on it lightly. But basically, calcium and magnesium help roots absorb other nutrients. So if your GH is low, your roots are kind of weaker, they're not doing their job properly, and the ion exchange efficiency drops. So the uptake of things like potassium, phosphate, trace metals, this is all reduced. So it's why micronutrients need a strong GH foundation to be absorbed and transported effectively. So we've talked about pH, and we've mentioned how CO₂ can affect your pH, so obviously it drops it. But also not having enough CO₂ can affect your plant's metabolism. So if you have low or poor CO₂, then you're probably going to have slower growth and sort of reduced nutrient uptake. So micronutrients are tools, and if the machinery isn't working properly due to low CO₂, low pH, then the tools aren't being used efficiently. And then lastly, your NPK balance, so your macros, what with them being sort of these cofactors for enzymes that process NPK. If the macros are deficient or excessive, then your trace elements are also kind of useless too. So even if micronutrients are present, plants need macros in order to balance them and use them. Signs of micronutrient deficiencies are going to be pale or yellowing leaves, which is usually an iron deficiency. Interveinal chlorosis spots or sort of like weird leaf shapes would be manganese. Boron, again, you would get sort of like dying patches or deformed growth. Zinc is small, like stunted leaves. So the one that I can't say, molybdenum, but it's got like a silent B in it, stops a plant being able to use nitrogen as efficiently. So to dose micros, you should just use a complete trace fertilizer that has all of these elements in good and safe ratios. And you should dose small and regular, kind of is better off than sort of like big weekly spikes. And test all your other parameters first, just so you can kind of know what you're dealing with. And if you have really soft water, again, you probably won't have like a lot of sort of like minerals and metals and stuff in your water. So you might find that you need to dose trace a little bit more often. And if you're tempted to sort of dose these things individually, it's probably not advised because things like copper and zinc are like heavily toxic, especially at high levels. So you're definitely just best off just using your all-in-one fertilizer, and that will do the job. Micronutrients support your macronutrients, and they don't fix macro deficiencies. So you have to do them both. And you may want to do them on different days, or you can do them on the same day. I do. So in regards to sort of micronutrients in algae, they definitely don't feed algae directly. And this just feels like the same thing that I say at the end of every one of these videos nearly. Weak plants that are missing things are generally the causes of algae, because healthy plants in a healthy system with a good healthy biomass will always be healthier and generally have less algae. So this felt like a bit of a one. I don't know. I thought micronutrients would be a little bit easier to cover, but in fact it probably wasn't. But I hope that this helped you understand when you're dosing micronutrients, what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're looking for, and just how some other little things can have an impact on them. So thank you so much for watching. We've still got a few more to go for this series. And if you've watched them all so far, like leave a comment and thank you. Because I know it's quite a lot sometimes, but I figured if I did this as one whole video, we'd all just be dribbling by the end of it. So thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.